I have literally just vibe coded an entire CMS content management system using Gemini 3.1 in literally a few minutes. And I've connected an automation up to automatically publish SEO optimized articles to my blog page. I can now publish articles at whatever volume I want and ultimately get those onto my site. Now, this is not an AI slop generator. The prompts and the way that we create articles is a very curated process, which we ultimately teach inside of our school community. All I want to show you is how to set up and vibe code your CMS system and then connect it to an autonomous process. This is ultimately going to save you a lot of time and it's going to save your clients a lot of time. So my friend, let's get into it. So you can see here, I've just got a very basic blog framework website that I just vibe coded in a few minutes. And you can check out one of my other videos if you want to do this yourself. But ultimately, this is what you need. And you need a blog section connected up to it. Okay. So you can follow our framework on how to vibe code your own website and you can add your own blog front end. I'll leave a link to the video where we actually broke down how to vibe code the site, host it on Netlify. It's really, really easy. But ultimately, once you have that, okay, and the site is live on Netlify, we're ready to go out and start building our CMS. So I'm just going to pull up a quick diagram real quick just to show you how this is going to work. So essentially, we're going to be building the CMS with Gemini. Everything is going to be stored and pushed to GitHub. Okay, so GitHub is just essentially version control. It's just a place where you can host all of your code and then you can go back to it in different projects. You can use different AIs. It doesn't really matter. And then we're going to host the site and the blog on Netlify, which is already up and running. All right, so all we're going to be doing in this video is adding a database, which is powered by Supabase. We're then going to be adding the API endpoint functionality, which is essentially going to allow us to build an AI agent, which creates the articles, publishes them to the API endpoint, hosts all of the content inside Supabase, and then automatically publishes it onto Netlify. Okay. So when you break it down, it is kind of simple. This might sound new to you, but ultimately this is pretty straightforward. I'm telling you now, I'm not someone who understands coding, but this is all just going to be in natural language. So we're going to be using Anti-Gravity to essentially create the CMS. Now you can use VS Code. You could even do this directly in Claude Code. You can do this directly in Google AI Studio, whatever you want. But ultimately, this is the most straightforward way to do it. Now, if you've never used an IDE before, don't worry. I honestly hadn't a few weeks ago, and this was really complicated to me. But the whole purpose of what we're doing here is to try and break this down and make it as simple and easy to follow as possible. So our website is already on GitHub. Okay, so what we need to do now is we need to connect Anti-Gravity to our GitHub repository. So I'm just going to go here and click clone repository and clone from GitHub. Okay, so Anti-Gravity is now going to ask me to sign in, and I'm just going to do that. Okay, so I've got my code here inside of Anti-Gravity. Copy that, paste it. Okay, so Anti-Gravity is now connected. So I should see all of my repositories pop up here. Okay, so this is my website, the Tuesday framework. So that is exactly where our blog website is hosted. Now I just need to choose a place on our desktop where we essentially want to be hosting this. I'm just going to go CMS for blog. I'm going to call that whatever you want, select repository, and that is essentially going to copy now the entire GitHub repository to our local desktop. That ultimately means we can start building inside of that folder. Now that we've cloned the website from GitHub, we can start going out and building directly into this local file that Gemini now has access to. All right, so once we're done, all of our coding, the blog functionality and the CMS should be added to the website. Okay, so now that we're inside Anti-Gravity, we've got our code base cloned from GitHub. I'm just going to go to planning mode. I'm going to select Gemini 3.1 Pro High. And again, you can choose anything you want. But essentially, we're just going to now give it a solid brief. Okay, so I'm just going to speak in natural language, telling Gemini exactly what I want it to do. All right, so I have just connected you to our live blog website. And what I want to do now is vibe code a CMS that essentially is hosted and connected to the database on Supabase. And I want to make sure that it has an API endpoint connected so I can connect it easily to my AI agent that will do all of the article publishing for me. I also want to have an option to manually upload and review blogs that are going into it. But ultimately, this should be a completely autonomous workflow that we can easily publish blogs to our website. Now, please also add a functionality which allows us to create SEO and GEO optimized articles through schema markup. So we need to have things like images, author name, publish date. We need to have FAQs all baked into the schema of the database and the site that we're building. Please go through a thorough planning mode. If there are any gaps in my brief, please go ahead and ask me some questions and we can go from there. Okay, so that's my brief. Pretty simple, but let's go ahead and see what happens. So what you got to do, if you don't necessarily know deeply what you want to build, honestly, I've just found speaking to it, giving it a rough idea of what your ultimate goal is very important. AI then is very good at sorting that out, figuring it out, and creating a really solid brief, especially if you're in plan mode. All right, so let's see what it comes back with. Now we have a plan. Okay, so you can see that inside Anti-Gravity here, we've got this panel here, which is essentially showing us the plan. This is where we're chatting with it, and this is where our project is hosted. So I'm just going to read through the plan now and just make sure it actually understood my brief. All right, so the goal is to migrate the Tuesday framework static blog into a dynamic CMS powered by Supabase. Automatically render dynamic SEO, GEO optimized schema markup on post pages, natively baking in FAQs, publish dates. By the way, SEO and GEO schema markup is specifically a language that essentially speaks to things like Google and search and tells Google that our articles are rich, dense, information that it can ultimately pull from. So if you're interested in SEO optimization and ultimately being referenced by AI, this is incredibly important. You can see it's asking me some really good questions here. So things like Supabase project details. If you don't understand how to use Supabase, that's fine. AI will literally walk us through it. That's cool. So I'll just say, yes, I need you to walk me through step by step. And then client-side rendering, static site generation. So the site that we built is like pure vanilla HTML, which basically it's just like basic, right? There's no framework. It's not next.js, and that's fine. Honestly, for SEO optimization, that's okay. No, let's stick with vanilla JS for now. Okay, so I'm just going to leave these little comments, answering the questions, proposed changes, database and config layers, boom, boom, boom. All right, so that looks good. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead here now and just hit proceed. And now I can actually just close off this plan. I can also look at its task, but I can close that off too, and then just stay in the chat window here. All right, so let's see what happens when it gets to work. All right, so as we go through this, Gemini is essentially going to ask a few different things. So you can see it's built the schema markup, which is really cool. I'm just going to go ahead and accept that. Okay, so now what it's doing is it's prompting me to set up the supabase.com. So this is stuff that we ultimately need to do now. So I'm just going to go ahead to Supabase. If you don't have a profile set up in Supabase yet, you can do this. It's got a really generous free option. I don't pay for Supabase at the moment, so I'm just going to go to dashboard. So I'm signed in. I'm going to go to my thing over here. I'm going to create a new project. Here is my new project, create project, project name, got a password, region, security, enable data API, and then we're going to go ahead and just click create new project. All right, so now that we have our project set up in Supabase, what we need to do now is go to this SQL editor, open that up, and then inside this section over here, we're just going to paste the schema SQL that Gemini has created for us. So I'm just going to go Command A, copy, go over here, and I'm going to hit run. Okay, so success, no rows returned. That's good. Now go back to Anti-Gravity. Okay, so step 4 is done. Now step 5, let's create your admin account for the CMS dashboard. So go to authentication, users, add new user, create new user. All right, so we just go over here, authentication, add user, create new user. And I'm just going to put my email address in here. Okay, so user is now created, got my email. And so this is essentially going to be for the CMS login. Okay, so now finally for step 6, we need to go to project settings. We need to get the project URL and the public API key and give that to Anti-Gravity. All right, so I'm just going to go here, project overview, grab my URL there. I'm going to pop it into Anti-Gravity, and then I'm going to go ahead and go to project settings, API keys. I'm going to click on legacy and non-service role API keys, and a non-public key is over here. I'm going to copy that, go back to Anti-Gravity, and I'm going to give it to him over here. All right. So those are the initial setup steps required from Supabase. So let's see what Anti-Gravity cracks on with now. And always remember, just when you're in Anti-Gravity, like these sort of things, you can always just close these off. If you want to just keep things clean, Anti-Gravity will always just tell you and pop things up if you need to look at it. All right, guys, so Gemini reckons it is ready to go. So it says everything's wired up. The new CMS is complete. I've also written comprehensive documentation for your AI agent to hook directly into the database. That's good. Okay, so you can see here is the walkthrough. So your custom high performance, blah, blah, blah. CMS, headless CMS powered by Supabase. All right, so I'm just going to read through this, make sure it makes sense, and then let's actually test it because there's a lot of good words and we want to make sure Gemini actually executed it. So the cool thing about this is autonomous publishing, which was the main outcome we really wanted. All right, so your AI agent does not need to log into the dashboard. It can publish articles instantaneously and securely via Supabase's built-in REST API, which is really good. And this is like really awesome here. Okay, so the SEO and GEO schema injection sequence. So when article loads as a post, it calculates what Google's crawler needs to see right before rendering it. So it silently injects a script directly into the head of the browser document. The schema contains article specification, FAQ, local business, which is awesome because honestly, I used to do this manually into Framer. So I always had to do manual schema injection onto my Framer pages. And now this is completely automated and taken care of. All right, so next steps is we need to open this in the browser. What I'm going to do is just go over here. I'm going to reveal in Finder and I'm going to double click. We're on the admin login page. Let's go ahead and use the email and password we used when we added the user to Supabase. All right, and there we go. Okay, so create new article, article title, slug, category. So it's read the categories on my live site, which is really cool. Got read time, cover image, markdown content, SEO, and discovery. So this is all the meta description stuff, which is really good. Add FAQs. All right, that's awesome. Okay, so technically speaking, I could now manually go out and update articles. Now, the whole purpose of this was that we don't have to screw around with this stuff anymore. But I should test it out manually at least once and then never have to do it again because my AI agent will bypass all of this and publish articles directly to my site. So what I'm going to do right now is just manually fill this out once just to make sure that our articles are actually publishing to the live site. Then we're going to set it up automatically so we don't ever have to look at a flippin' input form ever again. All right, guys, so this, just remember, is all still local. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and publish this article and it should technically pop up over here. So you can see here our local site, we've got no articles published. All right, so I'm going to go through this, fill this out, and I'm just going to use an article from my Brave Brand website currently, which is hosted on Framer. So I'm just going to go here and I'm going to copy and paste all of this over into my admin panel, and then let's see what happens. Okay, so you can see here, I have copied and pasted over one of my articles from my website. I've got the image, I've got all of these things filled out. I'm going to leave the SEO titles and everything for now. I'm just not going to do it just because I can't be bothered. Set as published, publish article, let's go. Okay, so let's refresh this bad boy. And boom, we have an article, guys. All right. Now our article is published. I mean, look at that, guys. That's awesome. Okay. So that is all a vibe coded CMS. The markdown is working perfectly. We've got our FAQs here as well, and we've got our final call to action. Now, obviously, if we wanted to, we could go out and sort of add things like recommended blogs, just to create something that's a bit more dynamic. But ultimately, we've got our first thing here. Now, what I also asked Gemini to do was to add a manage tab, just for me to basically be able to go and delete if I want. And you can create and customize your CMS as much as you want, right? So if you want to be able to manage the content, see all of the content that's published there, maybe make changes to it, edit it, for example, that's just something you would have to prompt Gemini to do. And you can customize this to your unique need. Now, if you are doing this for yourself, fantastic. But again, if you have clients who you're trying to get set up on something like this, you can literally vibe code the entire CMS for them. So ultimately in this demo, I'm just showing you what's possible. it's really up to your own creativity and every single client's unique need that you can ultimately go out and build this thing for. Okay, so article is now published. Now what I want to do is test out the API and see if we can get AI doing all of this stuff for us, so we never, ever have to do any inputs ever again. What we now need to do is get this live, all right? Because this is obviously still hosted on localhost. So I'm just going to go into Anti-Gravity. I'm going to do that, push this live to the actual website, and then we're going to test the AI endpoint and actually get blogs automatically publishing onto our site, which is going to be epic. All right, so in Anti-Gravity, I've literally just created a new chat, and I'm just going to say, all right, for this project, let's push everything to GitHub and get it live on Netlify, please. All right, so technically speaking, any single time you push updates to GitHub, because our Netlify is already connected to the GitHub, it will update and deploy automatically, and that's the beauty of this whole process. So you can see here, because we pushed the updates to Git, Netlify has picked up the changes. It's updated the live website. So you can see here, we've got our website and our first article is here. Awesome. We go to blog. Awesome. It's live. It works. And it looks kind of sexy, I must say myself. Now let's dial this thing up and go fully autonomous mode. Now that we have the CMS created, we're going to call on our AI agents to start creating these articles and publishing. Now, when it comes to AI agents, you can use any platform you want, but I have literally just been test driving Notion's AI agents, and I must say I'm impressed. We've set up 2 agents. One is called Lucy, the content copilot. And what Lucy does is she essentially helps me come up with that beautiful content strategy and that content corpus. So that is our pillar topics. It's the search queries that our customers are actually looking for, which is incredibly important when you're creating SEO and GEO dense articles. It needs to be things that your customers are actually searching for. And so we've set her up to run every single week at 9 a.m. And we've got this entire system prompt baked into Lucy, right? So she knows exactly what she has to do. She has to generate 100 realistic audience search queries, blah, blah, blah. And she also needs to search for weekly trends, right? So she knows our niche incredibly well. She'll go out and do a bunch of research and update our content corpus every single week. All right, so this is all set up from a system prompt standpoint, and this is our content corpus that she created for us. Okay, so in regards to setting up these AI agents, that is a video for another time. I just want to show you how I've connected this up to our CMS for automated publishing. So essentially what we've got here are over 100 different article topics, and these are things that our clients are actively searching for on the internet. Now, the information we gave it was a very deep dive into who our target audience is. And in order to get that deep dive payload, we use our brand intelligence app, which we've created. It's available inside of our school community. You can go through that, do all of your target audience research. You feed it into Lucy, the content co-pilot, who then goes out and creates this beautiful content corpus for you. So that is agent number 1. Agent number 2 is Arthur, the article automator. The whole role of Arthur is automated publishing and also article creation. Okay, he's connected to our content corpus, and every single time we change the content corpus from drafted to in progress, he then goes out, writes the article, publishes it to our CMS system. And again, this is a full stack system prompt, which tells him exactly how to write semantically dense articles. And this is key for not creating AI slop. We don't want to have an AI slop generator. Inside Notion, this is pretty straightforward, is we've connected him up to our Notion database, and we've also connected him directly to Supabase's MCP server. That means Arthur can speak directly to Supabase and update and upload articles without ever having to go through the actual CMS system. It just bypasses it and uploads the articles directly to the website, which is exactly what you want. So let's go out and test this bad boy. All right, so in Notion, I'm just going to go here. I'm going to say, is it normal to feel burnt out by content creation? That's the topic for the article. And we're just going to go in progress. And we're just going to go back to here. And you'll see that Arthur is executing the job, waiting to start. And he will go out, create the article, and he should technically publish this directly to our site. Okay, so it'll feel like magic. Okay, so we're going to let Arthur do his work. He's going to write this, and then in a minute or two, we're going to check on our website, and there should be a published article there. job has successfully been done. So our new article has been published and it just feels like magic, guys. Wow. Okay, so let's click into it. Is it normal to feel burnt out by content creation burnout by Arthur? Obviously, probably just want to change that, but it's actually kind of cool. We've got our stock image and we've got our article over here. Okay. So obviously there's things we can do just to make it look a bit more pretty, but ultimately this is awesome. We got our FAQs. Is it normal to feel burnt out by content creation? Should you take a break from content creation when burnt out? So, the good thing about this is the articles are written in such a way that we're matching people's actual search intent when they're searching on Google, they're searching in areas, which is what you need in articles in today's day and age. Now, my friend, that is the process. Okay. So we've got a fully autonomous system set up. We've got our Notion agents creating content, keeping it fresh every single week. That is set to an automated timer. And all we have to do is go to Arthur, the article creator, go to our content corpus. And all we have to do is flick a flippin' button. Okay. Flick the status and the thing writes itself. It publishes itself. If you want to get access to these system prompts, if you want to learn how to set up these AI agents, if you want to learn all about AI vibe coding and the AI tools and automations your business actually needs, it's exactly what our school community is for. All right, my friend, what a time to be alive.